And then finally, finding a place. I mean, this is certainly a huge issue, but like I said, there's a lot of agreement between people who are on vouchers and landlords who don't want to take vouchers as to why the program sucks. And the people they're pushing this fourth Section 8 thing are the ones who refuse to reform this program. So neighborhoods don't like Section 8, makes eviction more difficult. They say, well, voucher holders can be evicted for crime if they commit crime. Yeah, but if it's somebody in their household who commits a crime, well, you can't do anything about that. And then groups like the ACLU, they have a long history of defending bad tenants' right to free housing. And if you look at all these activist groups, I mean, they're basically Marxist, ideologues who believe that getting a free house from the government is a human right. And if you can't get it in the neighborhood of your choice, then that is somehow, a human rights violation. Which is fundamentally antithetical to, how America works. The other thing, Section 8 does pay higher than market rents in many middle-class neighborhoods. And it's that guaranteed government check. So, what that does is, if HUD comes into your neighborhood and says, oh, we think a 2-bedroom apartment is worth $1,200. Well, if the rent the landlord was getting was $1,000, he's going to look at that and then maybe he was sweating, whether or not the guy would pay him every month. He's going to look at that $1,200 and say, wow, that's a great deal. I'm not going to rent to private market renters anymore. If I do, I'm going to charge $1,200 because I can go to HUD and get a tenant and they'll pay me $1,200. So, what you have, and I hear this frustration all the time from a lot of people over on, like the East Side. The program increases housing costs and at the same time makes the neighborhood lower quality of life. Because the fact is, you do have bad tenants. Like to characterize any group as, it's a large group of people. It's some 50,000 people in Maryland. I like to think most of them are great people. I have a neighbor, over here in Idlewild, nice person, perfectly good neighbor. But the fact is, you get some terrible neighbors in this program, and the program is not designed to filter them out or differentiate or discriminate between good and bad. It treats it because it was designed around this great society goal of making housing a human right. You can't differentiate. You can't interfere with someone's human rights because they happen to invite criminals over to their household. And then finally, the injustice of government offering, was often an upper middle class lifestyle to people who just don't work. I mean, I had a house I was working on, and it was right next to one of the houses that the city bought in Baltimore County with Section 8. And the neighbor was great, nice person. But while we're working on fixing this house up, 6 vans show up, porta potty. The tenant is moving to a hotel for 2 weeks while they totally renovate the kitchen, the bathroom, the floors. They put in a new fence. I mean, there's $70,000 worth of work. I mean, it could have been an episode of HGTV. And the guys on the construction crew are like sitting there like, what? Are you kidding me? It's already like a $300,000 house and you're doing a kitchen and bath, like total rehab? Like, and nobody's paying anything. Well, we are, but it's, you can imagine it's frustrating to the guys on the construction crew, none of whom, get that benefit. But are paying it when they pay taxes. So,
Steve, can you hear me?
Yes.
We, the taxpayers, pay this.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, and we talked to the crew. They said, we got 65 other properties just like this that we're doing in Baltimore County. This is in the Stone School District. It's one part of this plan. And so there is one group of people who really love Section 8. And I apologize if you guys saw this before. This is only 2 minutes long. Can you hear that?
No. I can't hear it. I can.
Okay, we can't hear this. So what this is what the Section 8 program has become. And this is on my my old state delegate website, so you can go look at this. Probably a lot of you have already seen it. And you have this group called the Baltimore Regional Housing Partnership. It was created by an ACLU lawsuit where they effectively gave themselves control over $50 million a year in vouchers and carte blanche to go in and basically tell people where they can and can't live and how much the voucher will be worth in every neighborhood. So this is real data from 18 months ago. It's probably higher now, as to 3 different neighborhoods in Towson and the rents that they've assigned for a 3-bedroom apartment house. And so, of course, if you know the area, it doesn't make any sense because these people are ACLU ideologues. They don't know anything about real estate or how you set rents. What they do know is that they want to move certain dots on a map to certain neighborhoods, and so they'll set the rents according to that level. That's what they're doing. And they answered absolutely no one. You can't do Freedom of Information Act requests. You can't do anything. So this whole fight over the forced Section 8, this is what it's about. It's this group of people who are unreformed social engineers. And actually, if you look at their board, they're like 90% white, Baltimore City and DC people. There's not, it might be one person from Baltimore County on this board of like 20, but it's a totally unaccountable group of elitist left-wing ideologues who are focused on just moving dots around a map. And they love Section 8. What they needed was they needed to be able to try to force apartment building owners and small landlords into doing their bidding. So as far as the legislative update goes, in terms of what happened, I mean, this is one battle in a big war that's been going on. The left has been playing a long game here. This has been going on since 1994 in some capacity. And they won this battle, finally. It started, Baltimore City passed this bill in 2018, December 2018. It's right after the 2018 election, and people voted for Johnny O, even though he promised he was going to do this to Baltimore County. That is a big part of what really broke the dam here. Anne Arundel County, March 2019, the progressives there passed this. And then November 2019, Baltimore County passed it 4-3, and you had 2 people who just blatantly switched their votes to support Olszewski's agenda. That was Bevins and Quirk. Quirk is a small landlord. He knows that this was a ridiculous ask, but he's a party guy. He's doing their bidding. Kathy Bevins is just a terrible, terrible politician who sold her constituents out and now will try to redistrict herself into a different sort of area. But some very deceptive testimony from county officials helped push this through. They just totally ignore the fact that there's this regional housing partnership operating in the county, with over 4,000 vouchers. Put in perspective, the county's voucher program is about 6,300 vouchers. You have a group that is running a voucher program almost as big as 2/3 as big as Baltimore County. And we just pretend like it doesn't exist. And we don't ask where they are. We don't ask anything of them. We just let them do whatever they want to do. And then when somebody says, my neighbor is causing problems, and if you say, I think they're a voucher holder, say, well, that's not true. The housing authority person in Baltimore County said, most of the time when people complain, it's not actually a voucher. But they don't know. It probably is, and it's just not in their program. It's in this other program that they're choosing to ignore over on the side here. And so, they put forth these false narratives, which is it's all veterans and disabled and elderly people, and there aren't any problems. There's no, but how can you say that when you're just deliberately ignoring the fact that there's, and this is the largest such program in the United States. That's one thing that really got me interested.
Uh, there was a townhome relatively near me where there were people from all over the place coming to spend the night. The place was raided at least once a year for 10 years. And the county simply ignored everything. And then finally, the head of the local police station had enough and evicted the people. But it took years and years. There's no enforcement of any kind of rules.
Right. Right.
Steve, would you like to take a few questions?
Yeah. Let me just finish this one slide. So self-defense for property owners. So if you are a landlord, you're small. So the bill that has passed both Baltimore County and Maryland has an exemption if you own under 4 units. And also you can't use a property manager. So there's a way around this, which is, you can still subcontract with somebody for maintenance and be an individual landlord. Use a property manager, they'll ask you for it. And I talked to the Multi-Housing Association. All of this is being sorted out right now. There have been no enforcement actions to date that they know about. Of course, many of these enforcement actions also get litigated in these non-public secret forums, the Human Relations Commission in Baltimore County. But they're not aware of anything where they have actually gone after a landlord yet. But we do know that they're hiring testers. Testers are people that go out there and try to set you up. If the testers, and they're paid for by our tax money, of course, we're hiring people to go try to set up landlords. And if they don't find discrimination, well, then they don't really have an a way to justify their existence. So, it's an inherently biased process, and they're intending to find discrimination. So, you have to watch out. And the key thing, never say, I don't take vouchers now, even if you think you're below the cap. And document all steps of the interaction. Increase your application requirements and scrutiny. Credit checks and reference checks. Criminal background checks, of course, good. But one thing that has been recommended by somebody who knows this, a very strong limit on anyone staying over in a property you rent without permission of the landlord for more than 24 hours. I mean, I have these provisions in leases that I do. It's usually a week. If you stay there for more than a week, then basically you've moved in and you're a resident and you should get on the lease, or that's not part of the deal. So, but increasing, because that's where a lot of the problems come from, with Section 8. I mean, you're still able to require tenant maintenance of the property. The Housing Association gave an example of something that has come up where, I mean, here's the question is, if you disagree, since they sold this based on something that's fundamentally not true, which is a voucher's income, and that's the way the law reads, it pretends like something that's not true is actually true. The voucher is income, so I can't discriminate against them. But what if I don't want to agree to this lease provision that HUD requires in its amendment to a Section 8 vouchers lease? I mean, that's not an income based. So there's somebody out there that is going to end up litigating this. They're working on it. They haven't figured out exactly the argument. There's the precedent in Maryland isn't real favorable, although that precedent was based on a takings argument. But for example, Baltimore City requires that the owner of a property send their driver's license in order to be approved for a voucher. So there are a lot of buildings that are owned by LLCs where the owners are not going to send their driver's license. I mean, if I invested in a building in an LLC, I'm not sending my driver's license to Baltimore City. So they can't do that. And what property owners are now doing is basically trying to force HUD and its agents, Baltimore City Housing Authority or Baltimore County Housing Authority, to modify their processes to actually make them more friendly. And that will go on, and they may get sued in the meantime. Yeah, they may not. But so anyway, if you're a landlord, that's the advice. And I'd consider joining the Maryland Multi-Housing Council, because they're on top of the latest with enforcements and what is going through and what's not. I mean, really, all of this law is meaningless unless they enforce it. So how it's enforced is going to make a big difference. Anyway, anyone want to add some questions? Fighting back, here's some things we could do. One thing that was very disappointing, Chris West, and particularly disappointing to me because he's a big part of why I ran. He's been a family friend. His vote for the Home Act is just totally unjustifiable and very disappointing. He's the only Republican that's given them cover. Got nothing in return for it. So, but yeah, this is, like I said, one battle in a long war. And the more we can shine a light on this and everything that's going on here, the less successful they'll be, because ultimately they're not fighting for civil rights. They're fighting for welfare rights, and this weird Marxist ideology, that you deserve a free house paid for by the government in the neighborhood, which most people don't support. So,
okay. Can you take some questions now?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, the first one, are any parts of the housing choice vouchers funded by Baltimore County or Baltimore City or by the state of Maryland?
No, they're all funded by the federal government.
Really? But essentially, they're all funded by the taxpayers, right?
Yeah, federal taxpayer.
Okay. And there are many taxpayers who aren't on any form of relief who couldn't afford these rents.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it provides a very lavish benefit to a few people, has very long waiting lists, and if I've written an editorial about this, I mean, it would be much better to provide people with a limited amount of support and let them go out and make their own decisions, in my opinion. You'd be able to help a lot more people who are on the cost. You provide fewer people $2,400 a month apartments that they pay $25 for, but you'd help a broader set of people who are really hard up, marginally. So.
Our web host, Jolie McShane, would also like to answer that question. Jolie, can you come in? Either that or I didn't understand her.
Looks like she's muted.
Okay. Who pays for the administration of the housing authority? Now, I think that we have an answer for that. We've already answered that. The taxpayer and the federal government.
Well, that's a good question. I guess there is the administration of the program. I'm not sure, the federal government pays something for the administration. I'm not sure if it covers the full cost or not. They contribute something. So I've had this conversation with some people where there's like, well, the county is voting to accept this. I'm like, yeah, I mean, they're voting to accept money that is coming from the federal government. But quite frankly, if they don't accept that, then the money is going to go somewhere else, probably to the ACLU group that operates and has absolutely no accountability. And there's an administrative, fee that the government gets for administering that voucher. And so if that money doesn't go to Baltimore County, then it's going to go fuel some activists at the ACLU who are administering their vouchers. I mean, they're getting paid to do that.
Okay. Once a person gets a voucher, how long is that voucher valid? Does it need
valid indefinitely?
Or is it permanent?
It's as long as they are qualified for it.
So
which
Steve,
in too many cases, unfortunately, is forever.
Steve, we have somebody who would like to ask a question live, and it's from Ray.
You want
Ray, Ray, I'm going to
sharing?
unmute you. Okay, Ray, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, one of my concerns, I guess not concern, is just I know that there's like evidence now that there's discontinuity of care for folks that are on housing vouchers that move into areas that don't accept Medicaid. And it's an area that I think there's plenty of evidence to show that like you get folks who are Medicaid recipients or and have chronic diseases, they go to clinics in the city, say Baltimore City, that would accept Medicaid. Now you put them in areas like Towson or places like that that won't accept Medicaid. That causes a kind of disruption in their medical treatment. Is that an angle that we could also pursue to say that maybe folks?
Hey, I don't know. I mean, there are plenty of places in Towson that take Medicaid, but it does, you hear this argument that it's like disabled, elderly. It's like, okay, what is the benefit then of moving to Baltimore County where you're further away from everything? You need transportation to get to a lot of like doctor's offices, like, that probably don't have public transportation. I mean, that's an interesting kind of side argument. I don't know. I mean, Medicaid's everywhere, so but certainly if you force somebody to move, it would disrupt their activity. And the BRHP claims, they're not really forcing anyone to move, but I mean, they have a map, and you either fit on the map or you don't fit on the map. And if your neighborhood that you're in currently isn't on the map, then they're not going to give you a voucher. So to me, that sounds like they're forcing.